discussing the Shramanic tradition in Indian political thought. The basic objective behind today's discussion is to give you an understanding of the two traditions in Indian political thought, the Brahmanic and the Shramanic tradition, to give you an insight about the differences between Brahmanism and Shramanism, as well as to give you an idea of the various philosophical ideas of the Shramanic tradition. For the convenience of our understanding, I have divided the entire discussion into a number of segments. We first start with the basic idea of the two strands, Brahmanism and Shramanism. Then we move on with what is Shramanism, how did Shramanism develop in India. Then we would move on to the various philosophical ideas of Shramanism, emphasizing on the Jain and the Buddhist philosophical ideas. Let us start with the traditions in Indian political thought. Indian political thought can be studied with reference to two traditions, the Brahmanic tradition and the Shramanic tradition. These traditions can be classified on the basis of the belief or the non-belief in the infallibility of the Vedas. The Brahmanic tradition is the orthodox tradition with the belief in the authority of the Vedas. The Shramanic tradition does not believe in the authority of the Vedas, criticizes the Varnashram system, and is also called the heterodox tradition. The Shramanic tradition essentially focuses on the ideas of Jainism and Buddhism. Now, what is Shramanism? Shramanism is a reformist school of thought having its base in Buddhism and Jainism. Shramanic tradition arose as a critique of the Brahmanical caste system and the ritualistic trends. The two main points on which the Brahmanic tradition was in conflict with the Shramanic tradition was the observance of regular sacrifices, rituals, and the hierarchical caste structure. The Brahmins claimed pure descent from the Vedic days as the keepers and upholders of society. The Shramanas contested the idea of hereditary caste system and believed that the person can become a Brahman by virtuous and moral conduct and not by birth. Both, however, believed in the ideas of karma, rebirth, although they sometimes have different interpretations for the same. However, there is a lot of interaction between the two traditions and exchange of ideas are not uncommon. The reasons behind the rise of Shramanism. Shramanism arose as a result of the rise of new classes in Indian society, the class of traders, cultivators, artisans, merchants, and skilled laborers. In fact, the rising urban commercial community in India were the main followers of this tradition. Students, Shramanism is not a radical school of thought. It denounces certain aspects of the Brahmanic tradition, like the idea of God, Varna system, division of society, elaborate rituals. It stresses on non-violence, egalitarianism, self-reliance, efficacy of moral principles, and the need for self-discipline. The Shramani movement was exceptionally diverse in terms of doctrines and practices. Most Shramanas believed that free will, as well as the efficacy of moral conduct and spiritual practices, can be used in order to attain liberation from the cycle of reincarnations. Let us now concentrate on the main features of the Shramanic tradition. The first and the most important feature is rejection of the Varnashram system. The Shramanic tradition rejected the fourfold Varnashram system upheld by the Brahmanic tradition. They also rejected the authorities of the Vedas. The Shramanic scholars rejected the elaborate ritualism of the Vedic tradition. They also rejected the Brahmanical priestly supremacy. However, Shramanic philosophers believed in individual autonomy and the doctrine of karma and rebirth. They rejected idol worship and they emphasized on purification of the soul through ahimsa, renunciation, and a life of austerities. For the believers of the Shramanic tradition, quest for salvation was the ultimate goal of an individual's life. The entire Shramanic tradition can be divided into two strands: Jainism and Buddhism. Jainism arose from the term Jain, which means Jina. Jina means conqueror. Now, conquering our passions, our desire, our anger is what is emphasized in the Jain philosophy. It is based on the idea of relativism, pluralism, and atheism, and attempts to explain the rationale of our existence, the nature of the universe and its constituents, the nature of bondage, and how we can attain liberation. Let us now focus on the essentials of the Jain philosophy. Jainism believes in the independent existence of the soul and matter. Secondly, it emphasizes on the fact that there is no supreme divine creator. There is no supreme preserver or destroyer. Rather, Jainism had faith in eternal and the uncreated universe. There is a strong emphasis on self-control, ahimsa, renunciation and austerities in life. There is emphasis on relativity and multiple facets of truth. Finally, Jainism, as a Shramanic philosophy, believes in morality in daily life. Let us now move on to the philosophical aspects of Jainism. We begin with the first theory, the theory of substance. Believe that every substance possesses two kinds of attributes: essential and accidental. The essential characters remain the same in the entire lifetime of the substance. In contrast, the accidental elements change. They are temporary, they come and go. For instance, consciousness is the essential character of the soul. But pleasure, pain, desire, anger, these are accidental characters possessed by the soul substance. It is through the accidental characters that a substance undergoes change and modification. The essential character remains the same. Coming to the second theory, the Jain theory of Anekantavad or judgment. What is this theory? It refers to multiplicity of viewpoints about truth or reality. It implies that there are various ways of viewing reality. Reality has infinite aspects and all are relative. We can perceive only some of these aspects. This also further implies that all our judgments are relative. They are conditional, they are limited. And there's nothing called absolute right and absolute wrong. It is rarely that one side is completely right and the other side is completely wrong in a particular conflict or dispute. In fact, this theory believes that the world cannot be divided into absolute right and absolute wrong. There are many viewpoints in between, and the truth is the result of the understanding of all the viewpoints. Coming to the next important philosophy, the philosophy of bondage and liberation. In Jainism, every soul has the inherent potentiality of attaining the fourfold perfection, namely infinite knowledge, infinite faith, infinite power, infinite bliss and happiness. These qualities are inherent in the very nature of the soul. But they are obstructed by the karmas. Karma, according to the Jains, are the forces of passion, anger, vanity, greed, infatuation, desires. And these attract the flow of karma matter and they obstruct the soul. And it hinders the soul to attain perfection. Thus, the limitations or the negative traits in an individual are due to the karmic forces and the material body with which the soul has identified itself. It is these karmic forces that lead to the bondage of a soul. In order to relieve the soul from the bondage, the Jains stress on moksha or liberation, which can be attained by stopping the influx of this new matter into the soul, as well as complete elimination of the matter with which the soul has become entangled. Now, how do we achieve liberation from this bondage? Now, there are three principles. If we follow these three principles, which are also called the three jewels, which will help us to attain liberation. They are right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct. Right knowledge in the teachings, right faith in the Tirthankaras, and right conduct consists in abstinence from falsehood, stealing, injury, and free from all attachments. Now, this is how the Buddhist philosophy can be analyzed on the basis of the theory of substance, judgment, and karma. Let us now come to the Buddhist philosophy, which is another strand of Shramanic thought. The Buddhist philosophy can be found in the Tripitakas. They are the Vinaya Pitaka, the Sutta Pitaka, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka. Let us now move on to the essence of the Buddhist philosophy. The Buddhist tradition seeks to assimilate the best of both the traditions. In Buddhist literature, both the Shramanas and the Brahmanas are accorded equal respect, even though the Brahman is actually equated with quality and not birth. Buddhism criticized pure and completely detached asceticism as well as priestly ritualism. It criticized the Varnashram system. It also criticized the culture of sacrifices, which was very popular in the Brahminical tradition. Let us now come to the basic features of Buddhist philosophy. Buddhism stresses that everything is marked by suffering, change, and emptiness. Secondly, there's a cause and effect relationship between karma and phal. A middle way or a path between the extremes of dogmatism and skepticism is the best path. Liberation can be attained by everyone through right knowledge and right action. Let us now try to understand the political philosophy in Buddhism as outlined through the four truths, the four noble truths or the Arya Satya. The first truth speaks about the fact that existence of misery. Misery exists in all forms and in all beings and in all kinds of experiences. Even in the so-called pleasures that we enjoy, the real source is pain at the bottom. Second truth says that the existence of anything in this world, material, mental, has a cause and a condition. There's nothing which is unconditional in this life. Everything in the world is relative, conditional, limited. The third truth speaks about the fact that cessation of misery depends on some causes and conditions. Suffering is based on causes, and if you can eliminate those causes, suffering will also be removed. Fourth truth is the importance of observance of an ethical and a spiritual path, which would lead to cessation of misery. This path to Buddha was the Eightfold Path. Now, the Eightfold Path was considered to be the way to end suffering. It consisted of right knowledge, right determination, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, meditation. It was believed that the observance of this eightfold path will lead to nirvana. Now, students, nirvana is not an unconscious state. Rather, it is superconsciousness. It is an amoral state. There is no longer anything that ought or ought not to be done. So, this is a state where there is no suffering, no pain. Coming to the next important philosophy in Buddhism, the doctrine of dependent origination. This doctrine is based on the fact that things are dependent on specific conditions and they arise together with other things. The doctrine outlines the cause of suffering and its cessation. The existence of everything in this world, every phenomena is relative, conditional, dependent on a particular cause. Students, nothing happens by chance according to this Buddhist philosophy. In fact, Buddhism states that there are 12 links of the causal wing of dependent origination, which is the circle of life. In fact, it says that what are these 12 causal links? The 12 causal links are our ignorance, our mental condition, our consciousness, our name with which we are attached, our senses, our contact, our feelings, our emotions, our desire, old age, death. These are all causal links. Out of these, the first two causal links, that is ignorance and mental formation, is related to your past life. The last two, that is your birth and aging and death, is related to your future life. The rest of them are related to your present life, which are your senses, your possession, your attachment, your craving, your desires. These are all related to your present life. Now, this is a vicious cycle of causation which can be destroyed only when the root cause is destroyed. And what is the root cause? Ignorance. If ignorance is destroyed, the other causal links can also be destroyed. Therefore, if you can destroy the causal links, life would be blissful. Coming to the next one, the theory of karma. According to Buddha, the law of karma is responsible for our cycle of suffering, our birth and death. This is a causal relationship because cause and effect leads to our karmic occurrences. The present and future of a living being is dependent on his or her karma. The law of karma can be taken to explain the reason behind our suffering, our birth and rebirth. Karma is a law in itself. It operates in its own field without the intervention of any external independent agency. Thus, from the Buddhist perspective, our present moral, intellectual, and all our aspects are because of our own actions, our tendencies of the past and the present. Coming next to the doctrine of universal change and impermanence. Buddhism believes that change is the only constant. Everything in nature is transient. This concept believes that impermanence is undeniable, inescapable, and it is an important aspect of human existence. This doctrine seeks to explain that everything originates from something and it disappears when the condition ceases to be so. So why is change is the only constant? Why is everything impermanent? This is because Buddha believes that there are 5 processes over which we human beings have no control. What are they? The process of growing old, not falling sick, of dying, of decaying things, and of passing away of things which is liable to pass. Buddhism suggests that a way out is nirvana. What is real is the existing moment, the present, which is the product of the past or the result of our previous actions. Because of ignorance, an ordinary mind is unable to conceive that whatever we are experiencing now is a result of our past. Coming to the next theory, the theory of the non-existence of the soul, Anattavada. The essence of the doctrine is that it denies the existence of any eternal, essential and absolute substance called soul, self or Atma in living beings. Buddhism believes that the eternal soul is an illusion, The only identifiable self is the objective self, the self with which we identify with a name and a form, that is the physical self. The physical self to Buddha is a totality of thoughts, memories, desires, expectations, ego's illusion. It is not eternal, it exists so long as the mind, senses, body exist. When the personality is dissolved, the anatta, which is dependent on it, also dissolved. Therefore, our attachment to our self, our physical self, is the root cause of all our suffering. Coming to the final part of our discussion, students, what are the basic differences between Brahmanism and Shamanism? We would try to conclude our discussion with the basic differences between the two. We have already studied that for the Brahmanic tradition, Vedas are infallible. They regard the Vedas as the supreme authority. For Shamanism, they reject the authority of the Vedas. Second, for the Brahmanical school, caste system formed an integral part. However, the Shramanic tradition rejected the caste system. The Brahmanic tradition believed in the hierarchical ordering of society and absence of social mobility. But Shamanism believed in egalitarianism or equality in society. While Brahmanism was a communitarian way of living, belief in communities, Shamanism believed in individualism. The Shamanic thought was individualistic and humanistic. Finally, for the Brahmanic tradition, individual salvation can occur through rituals and observance of dharma. For the Shamanic school, salvation can occur through the Eightfold Path, that is Nirbhana. Let us sum up what we have studied today. We have studied the concept of Shamanism, what are the various principles of Shamanism, and how Shamanic tradition arose in order to rectify the evils of the caste system, rituals, animal sacrifices, and bring about egalitarianism in the Hindu society, which was steeped in caste-based distinctions. The Shamanic tradition was essentially humanist, believed in the essentials of human life, and finally, the Shamanic tradition emphasized on self-discipline, an ascetic lifestyle, and the doctrine of ahimsa or non-violence. Thus, Shamanism was also a way of life. Thank you.